I arrived at boarding school in the fall of 1982, with my pants too short, my hair too shaggy, and a bumper sticker that said, "Dragons are real," that I put on the back of my mom's station wagon. You know how people brag about being fans of a band before that band was cool? Well, I was a nerd before being a nerd was cool. Decades before being a nerd was cool. My mom helped me set up my room. I neatly arranged my books, sharpened my pencils, and put my favorite stuffed animal, Teddy, on my bed. In the room next door lived a senior. He was huge. His muscles had muscles. He played varsity lacrosse. He had a girlfriend and a boa constrictor, both of whom I'm pretty sure lived in his room. After my mom had driven away and I was sitting alone, wondering what to do next, his massive presence filled my doorway. He looked around my room. I thought to myself, oh my God, why did I put the bear on the bed? I was doomed. Maybe I could jump out a window, find a payphone, call my mom to come and pick me up. Then the giant spoke. He said, "Dude, you brought your stuffed animal to school. That's gutsy. By the way, do you play chess? I've got a board set up. Come in any time and we can have a match." Now, for years, I thought that I should feel somehow indebted to this sixth former. After all, he had exceeded my expectations. The default expectation was that strong, handsome, older jocks would bully those weaker than they were. Any behavior better than that, more humane than that, made him admirable. And in the context of the history of humanity, perhaps my view is correct. For much of our history, those with greater power have taken advantage of the more vulnerable. But why was my standard so low? My neighbor's kindness should have been what I anticipated, rather than a pleasant surprise. Tonight, I want to reflect on how we can raise our expectations for ourselves when we are in the dominant group. All of us have times when we are the more powerful, even those of us who frequently feel powerless. The comedian Chris Rock raises the standard for white people in the U.S. in a November 2014 interview with New York Magazine. Rock notes, "When we talk about race relations in America, or racial progress, it's all nonsense. There are no race relations. White people were crazy. Now they're less crazy. To say that black people have made progress would be to say that they deserved what happened to them before." Rock continues, "So, to say Obama is progress is saying that he's the first black person that's qualified to be president. But a black man being president is not black progress. That's white progress. There have been black people qualified to be president for hundreds of years." Rock concludes, My kids are smart, educated, beautiful, polite children. There have been smart, educated, beautiful, polite black children for hundreds of years. The advantage my children have is that my children are encountering the nicest white people America has ever produced. Let's hope America keeps producing nicer white people. This speaks to me, saying to me as a white guy that the problem of the color line is primarily a problem of how I choose to behave, vote, spend my money, and raise my children. And speaking of raising children, my wife notes a similar way expectations are lowered for the powerful, in this case, for men. As you know, Hannah and Margaret are now big kids. But once they were little. And when they were little, I would sometimes take care of them. That's right, all on my own, without their mom anywhere in sight. People would refer to me as babysitting the girls. Sometimes my wife would hear, "It's so great that you can feel confident leaving the babies with Terrence." She was usually too polite to respond that I was, in fact, a capable adult, responsible for half of their genetic makeup. This idea of men being less capable of child rearing sounds like it is an insult to men, but it is really much more a way of keeping women tied to a single role, that of mother, while allowing men the time and energy for engaging the rest of the world. Now, whatever advantages each of us does or does not have, all of us in this chapel have the privilege of an extraordinary education. And just as people of color in the US should be able to expect whites to take responsibility for addressing systemic racism, our society has the right to look to the educationally advantaged to engage problems of educational inequity. We, you and me, have to figure out ways of using the resources we are gaining at St. Andrews to close the huge gap in the opportunities students your age and younger encounter. In Baltimore, where in some places peaceful protests have erupted into rioting, infant mortality is equal to that in Moldova. This is a city, as author Dan Diamond writes in Why Baltimore Burned, with the Johns Hopkins healthcare system, one of the best on the planet. As President Obama said yesterday, we can identify the conditions that spawn riots in poor neighborhoods: unemployment, hopelessness, and importantly, underfunded schools. The president said, quote, "This is not new, and we shouldn't pretend that it's new. If we think we're going to send police to do the dirty work of containing the problems that arise there, without, as a nation and society, saying what we can do to change those communities, to help lift up communities, and give those kids opportunity, then we're not going to solve this problem. We'll go through the same cycles of periodic conflicts between the police and the communities and occasional riots in the streets." Close quote. Several years after the incident with my teddy bear, I had learned how to dress myself. My acne had cleared up, and I had become a varsity athlete. Indeed, for several years there, I was apparently a bit of a hottie, though the window between gaining clear skin and losing my hair was remarkably short. You would think that my experience as an outsider would have led me to be consistently kind during this period, but that wasn't always true. I distinctly remember at one graduation party, leaving my girlfriend from home alone for long stretches while I basked in my newfound identity as a cool kid. I felt the thrill of being wanted, and I let that distract me from considering the person who was most dependent on me that evening. Today, when I hear about students pressuring their prom date to hook up, or taking advantage of their age or charisma to treat their partner without much consideration, I can unfortunately see myself in both roles. As students, athletes, artists, and musicians, when St. Andreans face challenges, we push ourselves to surmount them. We can do the same thing when it comes to holding ourselves to a high ethical standard. In 22 days, the Forum of 2015 will stand one by one, shake Mr. Roach's hand, and clean out their dorm rooms for the last time. Many of you will leave here with a mix of ways in which you have less power and ways in which you have more. But each of you will carry with you one of the stronger secondary educations available in the world. The Forum of 2016 is already moving into positions of power at St. Andrews, with the presidential elections, RL appointments, and other formal and informal leadership positions. The Forum of 2017 will arrive on campus next fall, inches taller in most cases, seeming far older and more confident than the fourth formers they are today. And those of you in the Forum of 2018 in this chapel will be the returning students, welcoming new students nervous about fitting into your form or about establishing the new form of 2019. What each of you must expect from yourselves as people with power, you need to decide. Will your neighbors be able to assume, as they have the right to do, that they can leave their teddy bear on their beds?